Our counselor DP Patnaik is present. So now I request Patnaik sir to take over the class. Sir, start your class, sir.
Today is the MRD 102 and it is the unit 5, we can say, natural resources management and environment. This, this this is one of the important chapters dealing with the drought prone area programs, desert development program. This is called DPAP and DDP, natural resource management and environment. In rural development, this uh, DPAP is one of the important aspects so far as the states Orissa is concerned, and also the plain areas. Only the desert areas are very limited, which also deals with the same process of what is called developmental activities. Natural resource management environment is the first unit. This block deals with the two important area of development program, namely that is drought prone area program and desert development program. It is actually dealing with the diversification. Apart from the discussions, the main objective of these programs, this unit describes the importance of the watershed management also. It approaches the importance of irrigation, actually the natural resource of rainfall, and also the irrigation projects, besides that watershed management. These are the three components added in this chapter. So here the second part deals with the integrated water lands development program. Apart from the giving the historical background and the relevant details pertaining to the evaluating of the program, the unit discuss about the program guidelines, the operative principles, and also the silent features of the program. Here, the first one is the major component where the watershed management plays an important role in rural development, particularly in the field of agriculture. And also this particular this thing hill area development, upland development program, as well as the irrigation through rainfall, water irrigational deposits, and again also the integral waterlands development program. And here the major component deals in the uh, in the social forestry also. Again, the third step is social forestry and joint forest management. Why it is called as management? The management means the water which is available through natural resources, how to manage this, preserving it for the future irrigational purposes, and the waste water should be stored through natural sources. Again, the forestry aspect of the natural resources management in the rural development environment. The environment plays an important role. One third of our water irrigational and other aspects of resources are being wasted because of lack of management, we can say. The management is one of the major component where we have to manage the water to be stored, used throughout the year long, and also it should be utilized for the better, environmental aspects like better use in the wetlanding, and also the storage of stocking the water for future. And it also involves increasing the groundwater levels for the irrigational purposes like borewell or the canals, and also the irrigational possibilities whenever the water is needed or required for a particular land, maybe upland, maybe hill areas, maybe the area of lowland, where the water can be stored and more crop can be, I mean, developed. So these are all activities related to the rural development, we can say. The environment is also say, taken care of, and also the process of natural resources to be improved or increased or to be benefited for the farmers and also the target groups, those who badly need of water resources. So in the last, the fourth one is taken as science and technology for the rural development. Here you will speak about the science and technology, the how the management of science plays an important role in the rural development. So the science and technology is a evergreen subject. Wherever there is a need of technology for the rural development, it has got a different aspects and avenues and opportunities to increase our resources through scientific methods and also the technology to get better yield of our crops. Not only that, how to make the water sufficient water for a particular crop. Some crop may be needed very less percentage of water. Some crops may need the more water, and somewhere you will be needed uh, inputs of required I mean technology for a particular wetland or wasteland or whatever you call it. So altogether it is a development planning and management. First plan your land, then manage how to get the water or the irrigation or the watershed management, and then you prosper for the better yield. So the common man should feel free to get the opportunities of natural resources whenever and wherever, as and when it requires needed. So the development overall consisting of three different layers. That is, the way of management is made for for the better results of cultivation. The environment should suit us to get good crops or the good results in the rural areas. It may be technology, it may be industry, it may be agriculture, whatever it is. For the better yield and better results, we have to depend on science and technology. So the science today speaks that everything is possible with a what is called basic needs can be fulfilled by improving the quality of our natural resources. So sometimes the environment added to our better results in the rural development. So this feedback says whatever we do, we expect the improvement every day in future course of time also through the natural resources. We hope we hope that this particular chapter will give us not only the methodology for the better yield, and also it gives us the quality of what is called the developmental process. So plans we may have every 5 months in 5 years, but the results are only limited whenever we feel like we can get the results in a better way than the last year or previous years or from the historical background. So here the environment changes of its own because of so many climatic reasons, but the water remains as it is whenever we take precautions to preserve it. That is one of the watershed management we call it. Through small rivers maybe restored with the dams, maybe check dams, maybe some sort of storage of water. So watershed approaches are or the preparation of resource inventories, you can say. The work plan. Next, we have to make a work plan for a particular village or a panchayat or a block wherever the water sources can be irrigated to the lands which are all cultivated in future. So criteria for the selection of watersheds depends on the panchayat or the block or the district or the state. So in major cases, the state will plan for the irrigational projects by giving this strategic methodology. So what is the strategic methodology is present conditions. The strategic is always the permanent. The methodology which we adopt for the better results is called the strategic methodology. Review and coordination. We have to review from time to time, not that only one sort of strategy should be followed, continued for years together. So our aim is to review periodically, and it needs coordination. Sometimes more than one or two or three panchayats may be irrigated through watershed management, which needs cultivated for a number of number of acres of land, which are all possible for the water cultivation. It needs also a training who everyone participate, and mostly the people at the grassroots level, they should be informed, educated, and also what's called the importance of the watershed to be publicized, so that the monitoring and evaluation will give you the results, what to be done and what not to be done. So in this, not only the government but the panchayat plays an important role, and also the non-governmental organizations also included for the joint ventures sometimes, and also for better services. Panchayat Raj institutions in WhatsApp program. The Panchayat Raj naturally plays an important role, no doubt, but the institutions should have facilities like experts' opinion, again the technical, methodology, again the area which is to be cultivated should be properly planned, and the watershed programs should successfully commence in the every panchayat, in most of the remote areas also. Not that one panchayat gets land share of water of the watershed programs, the others are being neglected. So here you will find the different layers and different spheres of villages, which included in the cultivable lands and wastelands and forest lands and hill areas cultivational programs. So these are all taken into consideration through Panchayat Raj institutions. So performance of DPAP is very old concept, where we have to deal with this particular program, and the desert development program is related to some areas where you will find in Rajasthan or somewhere the desert, where the irrigation or the watershed may be important role, and it can be also cultivated some sort of crops or some sort of what is called the natural resources available in the desert areas. So here the most important thing is we have to address the DPAP program, that is uh, the the drought prone area program. You'll find particularly in our country, either there is a drought or floods, or sometimes cyclonic, or some sort of natural disasters. So to resist all these things, we must have a appropriate program, like where we can stand with what's called like full technical scientific technologies to face these things. So sometimes we also have shortfall of rain, where we have to uh, cultivate our lands, even if it is short fall, and we have to improve the yield, and also we must take care what are the methods used in case of scarcity of water, or low rainfall, or sometimes it may be high rainfalls also. So to resist these things, we have to balance it through the DPAP programs. The systematic effort to tackle the problem of drought and desertification, we have to have 5 years plan program. The problem of drought affected area was mainly addressed through dry farming project spread over a few areas, with emphasis on moisture and water conservation measures. So the DPAP may be uh, traced to the Rural Works Program, that is called RWP. that was launched in 1970 and 71 to create assets designed to reduce the severity of drought in the affected areas. For this, the program entitled Long-Term Strategy. In this context of conditions and potential of the drought-prone districts. So RWP identified in 54 districts along with the parts of another 18 districts continuous there too. The drought-prone for its purposes. So the program initiated actually labor incentive schemes, that is medium and minor irrigation, road constructions, soil conservations, and also afforestation measures, which uh, which then covered 12% of the country's population and about 20% of geographical area. So sometimes the water gets unnecessarily wasted where there is no cultivational lands or any purposeful water resources programs. So the midterm appraisal of the fifth, 5 years program uh, redesigned the RWP as the drought-prone area program. So the drought-prone area program has been launched in 1973 and 74 to tackle the special program faced by these areas that we constantly affected by severe drought-prone areas. So here, the evolution of the DPAP and DPP programs are naturally in the 1974-75 to 1978-79. DPAP followed the strategy and approach of integrated area development, as emphasized by this task force constituted by the Planning Commission in 1971 under the chairmanship of Dr. B.S. Minhas, then the Member Planning Commission, Planning Commission. The task force had recommended that the program should aim at integrated development agriculture with the focus on conservation development and utilized for land, water, livelihood, livestock, and human resources in the optimum manner, and they provide more stable income and employment to the weaker sections of the rural society. So this is how, so far Orissa is concerned, this is relevant to us, and it needs a lot of emphasis and also the importance, particularly in the field of rural development. So here again, the DPEP is not that much concerned or related to the state of Orissa, but it started in 1977 and 78 for areas of desert land where there is cold desert areas also, like Himalayas, Jammu and Kashmir, Gujarat, Rajasthan, like that. So the overall the country is having divided in DPAP and DPP programs till 1994 to 95. So this is constantly meant for the overall performance of the problems in the in our country. So again here the revision of DPAP and DPP, these programs have started rigid guidelines without well-designed plans, and despite of the substantial expenditure of overall rupees 17 1700 crore under DPAP. These programs are also bifurcated according to the need of the particular area specific, and again the country's requirement, and overall well, it is the bureaucrats and the authoritarians, they have to decide which land has to be considered for the better irrigation of millions of hectares. They with a little investment, the more yield or the benefits or coverage is important, and it has taken into consideration. The strategy for implementation of these programs, accordingly, high-level technical committee was constituted under the chairmanship of Professor C.H. Hanumanta Rao, the Member Planning Commission. The committee reviewed the programs comprehensively and, subscribed to its approach on all aspects. The program strategy, planning and implementation, people's participation, and contents, monitoring and evaluation. The integration with related program research and training and administrative setup. The committee, however, re-identified the blocks for treatment under DPAP and DPP by adopting more methodical and scientific criteria. What is the technical committee's observations? The technical committee identifies the following, like discussion focus on the efforts because the multitude of activities or widely uh, dispersed areas of every small size, the achieving the core objective of the program. Here the lands which are all uh, important for this cultivation through DPAP program is being identified specifically, and some areas have been scientifically, which are all not necessary to be coming in under DPAP, is to be separated. But overall, the aim is for little effort we must get better result. That is the DPAP's approach of the latest science and technological methods. Again, here ad hoc planning without integrating the approaches to land and water management. Again, the planning was done without people's involvement, so the program gets failed. And non-viable work plan in the absence of multidisciplinary agencies at the watershed, block, and district level. Plans not oriented to the local needs and indigenous and also vetted technologies not used for the program activities. No appropriate mechanism for the maintenance of the assets created. So these are all some of the things to be taken care of, and the technical review committee, uh, it has got its own opinion of ground realities and held discussions with the government, the beneficiaries, communities, public representatives, volunteer organizations, etc., and a strategic approach for the implementation of DPAP and DPP, envisaging the following points. Treatment of the development of uh, degraded land in drought prone and also desert areas to be taken compulsorily on the watershed basis, covering continuous micro watershed of 500 hectares minimum, and that have primarily community built lands and may uh, encompass private and the revenue lands and targets of degraded forests. So these are all the points to be noted, and also implementation of DPAP programs with the total participation of the beneficiaries with adequate representation of women, SC, ST, and other weaker sections in the planning stage and decision making activities. Here, the DPAP program is actually a technical terms that have been indigenous and labor oriented technologies facilitating the employment of the local people. Here, the positive role of volunteer organizations for bringing about coordination between the people's organizations and the district funding agencies for the purpose of project implementation and extending public awareness and in imparting training to the stakeholders. This is most important topic to be remembered. Transfer of program assets to the community for maintenance and uh, usefulness sharing among the beneficiaries. Again, here the nodal watershed departments should come together by administrative states, revamping in the government, the provision of assistance by a multidisciplinary team of senior officers from Department of Forest, Agriculture, Social Conservation, Animal Husbandry, Horticulture, Minor Irrigation. All these things clubbed together may be participated actively for the better implementations. Uh, Unified approach and convergence of all the rural developmental programs with various departments, ministries to ensure a multiplier effort in the area resource development and economic development of the resources poor. Then again, effectively monitor and evaluate the programs to ensure their implementation in the accordance with the watershed approach and strategy. In addition to suggesting the criteria for watershed development to the government, the Hanumanta Rao committee also worked to identify coverage under DPAP and DDP. So accordingly, the of Land Resources in the Ministry of Rural Development and the inter alia administrators DPAP uh, formulated the guidelines for development for implementing these programs in the project mode with effect from 1995-96. The guidelines were reviewed in the year 2001 to develop a, a contemporary outlook and a more participable approach. An objective realized 6 years after the original guidelines were framed. The role of Panchayat Raj institutions, PRIs, in watershed development program got specified to limited extent in the revised guidelines of 2001. Since the Ministry of Rural Development has been committed to strengthen the Panchayat Raj, its policy of devolution of powers to PRI by the states in consequence with the 73rd constitutional amendment uh, motivated the uh, framing of uh, Hariali guidelines to further the active role of PRI in the watershed program. The revised Hariali guidelines were applicable to DPAP programs with effect from April 1st, 2003. The basic framework in these guidelines, however, is based on the recommendations of the high-level technical committees and the current objective and strategy of TPAP over much to them. So the activities are continuous process. Even till today, these same programs are being continued. The watershed management in most of the states have taken lead for the better purposes of the rural development. So the the coverage, the percentage of the activities slightly improving, and every year there is a progress and inclusive, including the more number of panchayats and blocks according to the needs of these watershed programs. So here you will find the strategic methodology. What do you understand by strategic methodology? The guidelines of the watershed development were framed in 1995 and they were revised in the year 2001 to accommodate suitable provisions for addressing the real field situations and thereby making the implementation of programs more objective and effective. Later, the guidelines are further revised on April 2003 under Hariali guidelines with the intention of the developing more powers and assigning key role to Panchayat Raj institutions in watershed development programs. So here, the watershed development programs may be uh, defined, maybe considered in two ways. That is, one is the natural, when natural resources uh, fails or the rainfall is less, then we have to depend on the watershed programs of development methods. And the guidelines for watershed development issued by the Ministry of Rural Development for various programs of this ministry, such as DPAPA, is considered to be the most balanced approach addressing the productivity, equity, and environmental concerns while achieving integration, convergence, and participation. It makes radical departure from the erstwhile departmental process through a process of intensive delivery mechanism of community participation, community empowerment, and capacity building. The new implementation methodology adopts well-defined and effective mechanism for monitoring and evaluating the watershed projects. So here, some of the important or main features of the watershed management is the the Department of Land Resources, the Ministry of Rural Development, taking block as a unit, sanction the watershed project. The project period is for 5 years. Again, DPP are administered in the district through Jilla Parshad and district rural developmental agencies, which receive the installments of the central share of funding directly. The cost of watershed project is 500 hectares is rupees 30 lakhs at the rate of 6,000 per hectare. The cost in shared in the ratio 75.25 between the central and the state governments. So here the sharing of the fund depends on the situation and need based for the each and every block or a district or a panchayat whenever and wherever it is required. Some panchayats may need more percentage of central aid and less percentage of state aid. Like that, it will be decided by the executing authorities from time to time. Sometimes the state government has to set down more funds for betterment of in the interest of that particular panchayat. So here, self-help groups and user groups also imparting training to the beneficiaries and members of the watershed development team, so that they will be well trained for betterment of these particular projects. The work plans are prepared by the uh, watershed development program authorities with the assistance of the watershed development team appointed by the PIA and watershed development comprising experts on forestry, agriculture, soil, water conservation, horticulture, and the district watershed development committee for the implementation approves the detailed action plan. The people's participation, uh, the work plans uh, are bifurcated according to the on the priority basis according to the needs of the people. So here, people's participation is most one of the important aspects. Without participation of the public or the people, the projects may become failure. To facilitate involvement of the local community and to organize it to participate in the process of planning and implementation, maintenance of assets, and uh, using a sharing in order to institutionalize these programs to ensure self-sustained effort by the community for economic development. So overall, the main thrust is to economical, not only economical development, but the utilization of the resources is most important. So watershed association, watershed committees, they are responsible for promoting of this activity frequently. At least they have to meet at least twice a year, formulate its own working procedure, including those concerned with the working of the committee and its secretary, approve, improve, and watershed development plans, resolve differences, approve the activities, works, monitoring and reviewing the progress, approve the receipt and uh, disbursal of funds, statements of accounts, lay down procedure for the work watershed committee and the office bearers, supervise and control its activities, take disciplinary action, remove the member or secretary, etc. The committee assist the president or the uh, uh, working association and on behalf the on behalf of the project looks after the day-to-day work of the watershed project. The body of the watershed association and not independent of it. They have to work according to the in a team spirit according to the needs. Again, the self-help groups also involved in this particular watershed management or the watershed program activities. These are all homogeneous groups of landholders who are depending on the watershed ecology and economy, such as agriculture laborers, shepherds, women, SC, ST communities, etc. These groups are encouraged to adopt alternative resources of livelihood with the cash loans provided from the revolving funds created under the project. Separate self-help groups are organized for women SC STs. So the user group, who are the user group in the critical to the watershed development program because of the group are the backbone of the participatory planning and participatory uh, implementations. These are all homogeneous big groups who may be the most influenced benefited all otherwise by the watershed activities and include the landholders. This review and coordination committee plays an important role, like the committee the advises and assists the JPs, Jilla Parishad or DRDAs on the selection of the uh, PIS constitutions of watershed development team, training, formulation of SSG groups and promotion of the public awareness, etc. The committee also approves the deadline detailed work plan for watershed projects in the district. The policy issues in any way referred by it to the state union government. So here the the chairperson, additional secretary, agriculture production commissioner, development commissioner, heads of the related line departments, NGOs, all are responsible and all are collectively join hands for the development of project. So the central level, the programs are coordinated through periodical review meetings under the chairmanship of the Union Secretary, the Ministry of Rural Development, involving the administrative heads of the state departments of rural development. In these meetings, the progress of programs implementations is reviewed and also decisions on policy issues are taken. So by overall, the watershed management is one of the backbone for a agricultural rural developmental activity, and now the science and technology also join hands for the betterment of small scale industries and other gram panchayat at block level Haryali program activities. The gram sabhas, gram panchayats, block and jilla panchayats are the stakeholders and the main interest of the group in these programs are ensure the success of the sustainable implementation of the watershed program. So here you'll find the training for the particular class of people or the group or the NGOs or to the stakeholders or the grassroots level, uh, I mean, uh, organizations functioning in this particular area. So they through training programs, we may expect make them aware and take the technical experts' opinion, and it differs from land to land, area specific, and also the methodology of training and implementation on the area. I mean the land-based programs wherever and whenever it is required. So here the nodal government agencies also involved. The programs are nodal agencies like JATPs, DRDS, and of state level functionaries, and all together, joined together, they create a healthy atmosphere for the district chief executive officers in the integral part of the training program, and curriculum is required to include the local officials. They concentrate on the better needs and also the GST techniques and also the related aspects of technology. The training is based on community organizations and also empowerment of the localities, local area farmers and others. So the state rural level institutions organize the training programs on their own and in collaboration with other institutions. So here, after all these things are being organized or conducted, but in the each project there is a need for monitoring and evaluation. So whatever the work uh, undertaken or completed or about to be completed or going on, this needs timely periodical monitoring and evaluation. So the evaluation is one of the major aspects for the funds given by the central as well as the states. The schemes are to be implemented by the Ministry of Rural Development, and they impact with the state officials and undertake field visits regularly to assess the implementation. Here, the uh, uh, the vigilance and monitoring committee at the state level, the district and the block level were constituted by the states as per the directions of the Union Ministry of Rural Development, monitoring the programs. They were sponsored in December 2002. However, the ministry decided or directed the states to abolish these committees, and in order to revitalize the monitoring instruments, reconstitute these committees, and in order to realize the monitoring instruments, vigilance and monitoring committees at the state and the district levels under the chairmanship of the Minister Rural Development, the local member of the Parliament, respectively. Some of these committees have come up in some states and districts. These committees are to watch closely the implementation of the programs as per the guidelines and the procedures, and ensure quality expenditure in view of the fact that large public funds are being spent under all the schemes of rural development. So here the the funds are mainly meant for the public, in the interest of the public, for the use of the various activities like DPAP and DPP programs, DDP programs in large. So the reports are in fact a prerequisite for the states to become eligible to obtain further central fundings for these projects. The Ministry of Rural Development also conducts uh, current post-project evaluations and impact assessment studies. So the study is the mirror of the project of uh, DPAP. So thus the schemes are being implemented all over the country. Again, here the non-governmental organizations, they give us high-level technical committee of Professor C.H. Halmanta Rao underlined an active role for NGOs in the watershed development program is under the implementation, then particular participation mode. Accordingly, the guidelines for watershed development envisage the role of the project implementing agency. So here, the the supervision and overall implementation of the project for NGOs, besides the Panchayat Raj institutions and the line departments, it will be accountability will be uh, easier. So here, criteria for the selection of NGOs is to be followed. The prospective and the perspective on watershed development, nature of the project handled in the past, technical and managerial capacity. The NGOs should have active in the area for the significant period before pro, uh, proposing a watershed project for the area. So the NGOs and PIA are central to the program implementation and the uh, accomplish the monitoring and the review of overall project implementation, community organizations and constitution of SSG and other volunteer organizations, organizing training for all village community, conducting PRA exercises, preparation of work plans, and supervision of watershed activities, providing technical guidance through the watershed development and inspecting the authenticating project accounts. So these are all the responsibilities given to the NGOs and active participation in successful functioning implementation of the programs. So the Panchayat Raj institutions actually directly they are involved in watershed programs. So how does the Panchayat Raj institutions involved in this? So in uh, the guidelines are very clear. Uh, According to the Watershed Development Program of 1995, as these institutions had not much to do in the development activities. However, the 73 and 74 amendments to the Constitution of India, the PRA, have become the primary and key actors in the implementation of development programs at the grassroots levels. According to the revised guidelines for watershed development 2001, envisages an enlarged and more active role in PRA as their mandate includes the following. So, what are the? They are the authority to monitor, review the implementation of watershed programs, make interventions to ensure their coverage with other programs, full involvement of Gram Panchayat in community organizations and trainings, approve the work plan by the Gram Sabha, and inspect the accounts of the watershed committee. So these are all the main role that Panchayat Raj is involved. Basically, the Panchayat Raj only takes an important role whenever the project comes up in the particular Panchayat, and they are responsible for its success, not only success for the implementation. Again, they are the responsible for review meetings very often, discussions, and it's the in a science and technology also implies in its developmental activity incorporating the latest developments and the results from time to time. So here uh, there are so many success stories also about the watershed projects in DPAP in 1995 and 96 and 2000. I mean, sorry, 1999. Uh, the villages, some of the villages, I mean the Gram Panchayats, they came out with the success of getting good results in the field of rural development. Those and also it's a uh, uh, crop irrigation, water for crops, for fodder scarcity, and absence means of self-employment and all these things sharply identified in its developmental activities. Watershed treatment for self-reliance. The DPEP project is dedicated development under wonders. It created wonders and changed the face of the villages. So these are the some of the important aspects through which the watershed development programs projects have been highlighted in this country. So here the about 972 blocks in 182 districts in 16 states and cover the area of uh, 7,45,914 square kilometers. This has been created a record. So it's a continuous process. Later on, it has the watershed development projects have changed the scenario of the villages, and also the agricultural lands brought together are better, I mean, prospectors. About 50 lakh hectares of area estimated to have been treated under DPAP. So the implementation registered treatment of about 57 lakh hectares. That's what the statistics says. Here, some of the states in like 235 blocks of 40 districts covering an area of uh, 45 lakhs 79,000 square kilometers of seven states like Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Karnataka, Rajasthan. These are all some of the statistics which speaks about the watershed program projects developments. So again, yeah, some of the states still they are working on watershed where there is a good irrigational facilities are there, and there the check dams and other things are being coming up, and the watershed whenever there is a rainfall areas are there, the water is being stored through systematic way of watershed programs. So that gives us a good result of better yield. Or uh, uh, the technical committee in 1994 reviewed the program and a watershed approach focusing on integrated implementation of various activities which was adopted. The philosophy of community participation and the empowerment underlines the implementation of these programs. Since then, the role of the NGOs as the main facilitators has also recognized, and the coverage under the two programs has been identified by adopting scientific criteria, that is moisture index, rainfall, uh, then uh, evotranspiration, etc. The programs are being implemented through people's bodies, watershed committees, and watershed associations. The two vital stakeholders under the program are self-help groups and alternative livelihood avenues, and user groups for drawing benefits from the created assets. Training to the various categories of stakeholders, capacity building is an important component under the program. So thus the watershed development programs have created a history where you'll find it's an evergreen subject, where where not only the projects and programs are coming up, but the people's participation is also from different angles in different methodologies, keeping in view of the science and technology of developmental activities. Even till today, the watershed management programs are being conducted or organized or commenced or uh, planned, or the policies have been adopted for the better yield. So this is how we can discuss a lot about watershed management. The management is nothing to manage what are all the resources we have through the environmental backgrounds, and also the people's participation is most important where the people actively participate, there is no doubt of good results, and we can do the wonderful job with the resources which are all available. So this is the most important aspect in the rural development. As a rural development professional, they should know how things and projects being undertaken or commenced for the better development of the rural development of the country. So now let us go to uh, the other chapter, that is called uh, Wasteland Development Program. Wasteland Development Program. What is this Wasteland Development Program? The Wasteland Development Program, everyone, the word itself, wasteland, shows that the land which is idle or not cultivated or not used, or the land itself declared as waste. In fact, there is no wasteland at all, because a rural development professional takes it as a granted there is no wastage in the country when there is a thrust that every land should be made use of by one way or other. If it is wasted for some purpose like agriculture, it may be useful for some other purpose like industry. It may be wasted for some reasons, but it can be made useful for science and technological methodology. And the wasteland can be treated as the best land by way of our efforts, and also the experts' opinions, and also the innovative plans and ideas. So the background of the development of these programs uh, are unprecedented population pressure and demands of society on scarce of land, water, and biological resources, and the increasing degradation of these resources are affecting the, the stability and resilience of our ecosystem and the environment as a whole. Globally, the expansion of human settlement and the infrastructure, uh, identification of agriculture, and expansion of farming into marginal areas and fragile ecosystem emphasize the need for integrated planning and management of land resource. And most of the things uh, ଆଜିକାଲି ଆମେ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ମିଳୁଛି ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ବି ବହୁତ କିଛି ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ୱେଷ୍ଟଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ବୋଲି ଆମେ ଡିକ୍ଲେୟାର କରୁଛେ ବା ଫରେଷ୍ଟ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ବୋଲି ଆମେ ଆଇଡେଣ୍ଟିଫାଏ କରୁଛେ ଏବଂ ଆମ୍, ଆମ୍, ସମୁଦ୍ର କୂଳ ଅଞ୍ଚଳ ଯୋଉଟା କି ଚାଷ ପାଇଁ ହୁଏତ ଦରକାର ପଡିପାରି ନପାରେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ତାର ବି ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ରହିଛି। ଆଉ କୋଉ ଦିଗରେ ଆମେ ଗ୍ଲୋବାଲି ଆମେ ଯଦି ତାକୁ ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବା, ଏନଭାଇରନମେଣ୍ଟ ବାଲାନ୍ସ ଟାକୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବା, and uh, I mean, well-being, well-being of present and future generation କୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟ ରଖିବା, ତାହେଲେ ଏଇ ସବୁ ଲ୍ୟାଣ୍ଡ ଗୁଡା ବି ଆମ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଚ୍ୟାଲେଞ୍ଜ। ଆଉ ଏଇଟା ଡେଭଲପ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ହେଲେ promote sustainable and balancing land, water and other resources uses, providing a basis for negotiations, participatory decision making, and conflict resolving among the stakeholders, as well as providing an enabling political and social and economical development environment. So here, the development by all sorts of these things is clubbed together for a wasteland development program. And degraded lands, and to give focus attention to the issue concerned, the government set up a National Wasteland Development Board in 1985 under the Ministry of Environment and Forest. Later, a separate department of wastelands development was created in the Ministry of Rural Development in 1992 by by transforming the National Wasteland Development Board from the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So this with this, all non-forest wasteland have come under the preview of the uh, Department of Wasteland Development for purposes for development in April 1999. The uh, the nomenclature of the Department of Wasteland Development was modified into the Department of Land Resources to act as the nodal agency at the national level in the field of land, land resources management. All land-based programs, schemes which were earlier being implemented by the different departments in the Ministry of Rural Development have been brought within the purview of this new Department of Land Resources. The Integrated Wasteland Development Program had been under the implementation since 1989 to 90 by the National Wasteland Development Board in the Ministry of Environment and Forests and was transferred to the Ministry of Rural Development in the year 1992. The uh, the envisages development of all non-forest wasteland in the country. The basic approach in the implementation of this program was modified in April 1995 when the guidelines of the wasteland development for development of problem lands through watershed approach came into force. The objective is actually the wasteland degraded lands on the watershed basis, keeping in view the capability of land, site conditions, and the local needs, promoting overall economic development of the improving and socio-economic condition of the resources poor and envisaged section inhabiting the program area and restoring ecological balance by harness, conserving and developing natural resources and land waste, wasteland, etc. Encouraging village community undertake sustainable community action for the operational of maintenance of, of assets created and further the development of the potential of the natural resources in the watershed and adopt simple, easy and affordable technological solutions and institutional arrangements and make use of land building upon local technical knowledge and available material. So these are all the uh, wasteland uh, program objectives, and the main objective overall is employment generation, poverty alleviation, community empowerment, and development of human and other economic resources of the village. So here the wasteland, the definitions of all the wasteland categories, areas are concerned. As per the report of the Technical Task Group institutions instituted by the Planning Commission 1987, wasteland or degraded lands which can be brought under vegetative cover with reasonable effort and which are currently under utilization and land which is deteriorating for lack of appropriate water and soil management or on account of natural causes. So this is the definition of wasteland management, or the you can say the real meaning of the wasteland. So broadly, the causes of degradation. So increasing uh, biotic pressure on the fragile ecosystem, population pressure, unplanned urbanization and rural poverty, breakdown of traditional institutions, that manage the common property resources, lack of appropriate management practices. These are the various estimates on the extent of wasteland or degraded lands in the country. These estimates are also presented from time to time. Uh, the in the April 1993, the Ministry of Rural Development constituted high-level technical committee under the chairmanship of Professor C.H. Hanumanta Rao, who was earlier the member of Agriculture of the Planning Commission, to thoroughly review and recommend suitable means of implementing the central sector area development programs being amended by the ministry, namely drought-prone area program. And the same chapters, the wasteland is also incorporated for the in the guidelines. The Ministry of Rural Development included the Integrated Wasteland Development Program uh, uh, in the basic unit of development, and a small watershed catch and size of about 500 hectares, which may cover one village as far as possible. And again, the small watershed so identified at the village level should be managed in teams of its planning, implementation, and maintenance of the local people themselves with the government and non-governmental organizations providing the necessary technical and financial support services. So here, the the rural development wasteland programs, the guidelines are issued from time to time by the Ministry of Rural Development. So there were some revisions in this guidelines also. The Panchayat Raj plays an important role again for development of these wasteland development programs, and it follows the guidelines of 1995, 1994 and 1995, and 2001 guidelines in average in this role of PRI in the implementation of wasteland projects. So here we have already discussed with DPFE, watershed management, and also wasteland management, and watershed projects, the programs, and its implementation. Again, we have also dealt with institutional program for implementations of various programs. Here, the district level organizations involved uh, in all these projects and programs. Procedure, the procedure for sanctioning of project, that is 75% from central funds and 25% from the state funds. And again, the availability, requirement of funds, impact of evolution. So, and these are all the major activities which in rural development we have to know about it and implement it, and also see that these things are continued in uh, and days together for future. Now let us discuss about the social forestry and joint forest management. Now here there are two aspects we are going to discuss. One is called social forestry. The other one is joint forest management. So these are all the two different things we are dealing with as far as the rural development is concerned. But here, critically analyzing the extent of interior dependence between the communities and the forest resources and sustainability and conservation. So these are all the aspects, the objectives in which we will be dealing with. Again, here we will be explaining the concept of social forestry, joint forest management, and village eco development. And also we deal with government for the promotion of people's participation in forest management and outline the performance of these programs and the factors associated with them. So, what is actually the social forest? So, forest from the life support system for the population of nearly 147 million people living in about 1,73,000 villages of India inside the inside and along the uh, fringes of forest. The state of forest has been interestingly related to the economic well-being of the rural poor in these villages, increasing population development programs, and accordingly, the envisages use of forest has caused slackening of forest areas and therefore increase in the pressure for forest products and services. Naturally, the rural poor in the vicinity have been the worst affected lot. So here, the social forestry is one of the most interesting topics to be discussed. And here you'll find there is a demand of projects. The Forest Survey of India, according to the study of Forest Survey of India, you will find a significant, interesting issues like uh, the total requirement of forest fuel, probably the most important forest produce for villages in the country was about 201 million tons in 1996. Projected demand for the fuel woods from 2001 and 2006 to 223 and 247 million tons respectively. Planning Commission declared in 2001. So the basic idea behind this forest products, I mean the firewood, sometimes it gets destroyed itself by fire, sometimes this gets destroyed by natural calamities, sometimes this has been destroyed by uh, the means of drought. So all these things taken into consideration, the only 17 million tons, it is believed that about 51% of the total demand, much more than is available, is met from the forest. Similarly, pressure exists for timber, fodder, and other forest products. Productivity of our forests, as estimated, is 1.3 cubic meters per hectare per year compared to the global average of 2.10 cubic meters per hectare per year. In terms of timber and firewood, the the diversion of forests for various developmental needs also has contributed to the depletion of these resources. Mostly you will find the conventional rural development programs have seldom taken into consideration. This situation and there have been any specifically designed rural development models for the rural areas with populations wholly depending on the forest resources for subsistence. As a result, various programs formulated with good intentions have often resulted in conflicting situations, especially in the context of the conservation status of natural resources like forests and wildlife. This has caused further improvement of the people. The maintenance of forest resources base has always been a critical factor in the life of forest fringe formalities, but it has seldom been seen as a means of rural development. So here, the social forestry and participatory forest management have uh, emerged as a response to these circumstances. The National Commission on Agriculture, considering the need to expand a tree resource base of the country, suggested that adoption of social forestry in rural areas in 1976, the sixth five-year plan period 1980 to 85, gave a boost to the afforestation activities with the centrally sponsored social forestry, including rural fuel wood plantation scheme. A series of social forestry projects followed with its support of the implementing agencies, including the World Bank, SIDA, DANIDA, USAID, and others. Social forestry projects aimed at taking the pressure away from the forests by the afforestation of all the unused and followed lands, including village common lands. So here you will find the Panchayat Raj plays an active role in identifying the social forestry and its development, and uh, uh, it also identifies tree planting, ground around the agricultural fields, along railway lines, the roadsides, rivers, canals, banks, carried out meet to the growing demands of the timber, fuelwood, fodder, etc., thereby reducing the pressure on the traditional forest area. So, so it was also considered as means of putting up the optimum was the follow of degraded lands community development schemes like NREP and RLEGP to add the components of social forestry. The implementation through the government establishments was aimed at the planting trees as mentioned above. People's participation was envisaged through awareness, creating campaigns, and extension services. So, what are the types of social forestry? Social forestry activities may be categorized into uh, three groups from social forestry, agroforestry, community, and extension forestry. So here we make an assessment of the social forestry programs. Most social forestry projects, however, come under the increasing criticism because they failed to adequately involve the local communities and the rural poor. The main beneficiaries, instead, these projects created mainly to urban and commercial interests through the widespread promotion of fast growing trees and subjects for pulp and paper manufacturers, rail production, urban fuel wood supply, and other commercial uses. So here uh, you will find the social forestry plays an important role by the people, involvement by the people, and panchayati Raj establishments and other community organizations in law. In 1988, uh, midterm review of social forestry cited the lack of participation of local communities in project design and implementation and cover realizes the industry-based management as the main concept of the shortcoming of the project. So the projects always planned for the in the interest of the people's participation, but nowadays you will find the people's participation is too less than the expectations. So here the what are the social forestry programs? The social forestry programs emphasizes on planting trees without approaching the requirements of the communities, impact its sustainability negatively. Planting of tree is still taken as a good option for degraded soils and wastelands instead of a diversification crop. Farm forestry became popular more for its long gestation period, for low labor requirement and absentee landlordism rather than its remunerative aspects. The agroforestry seems to be acceptable when a balance is struck between the agriculture and the planting of trees. However, it works only for farmers with bigger holdings and because for marginal farmers and landless livelihood issues compel the use of land mainly for conservational agriculture. So joint this is actually joint forest management is also one of the concept where this can be adopted and upgradation of forest. Hey, Lily, hello.
Sir,
Sir, good minute, 1 minute. So here the management concept and the objectives. One of the major aspect in this lesson, the delegation of forest affects most of the poor rural mass concerned to the nation. Again, the degradation of forest affects most of the poor rural masses that depend on the social forest resources. Again, livelihood. The management of the government forest will recent past was aimed at the population of the goods and services like timber, for other forest products, and the maintenance of the social and water regime. The access of communities to these resources was limited to rights and the concept of grants for pathways, dry wood for fuel wood to the limited extent, and the grass and fodder as regulated by the government in some states. Traditional rights for structural timbers were also recognized and granted for on the product basis periodic basis, sorry. So here you will find the products are too many, the users are limited. Slowly, it is actually in reverse gear now. The forest products are being slowly coming down, and it became a commercialized. So the efforts made for the joint through joint forest management degraded government forests in the density of villages and being revitalized by the effective efforts of the government and the villages. The villages, now you will find most of the villages have been restricted to enter into the forest and collect the valuables without the information or the approval of the government. So this way it is now in revolution. I mean revolving stage. In 1988, the Government of India introduced a new forest policy that radically altered the aim of the forest management, shifting it from commercial and industrial focus onto one and stresses environmental functions and meets the basic needs of the people living in or near the forest. For the first time, the rights of the people living in and around the forest were recognized as a part of the management of the forest, and the demand of the people has been recognized as the first charge on the forest produce. So now the forests are no longer in the clutches of the people or the villagers or the people living nearby the forest. So here the support of the new policy in 1990, the government of India issued a directive to the states to develop a participatory approach in their effort to restore nation's degraded forests. The approach has been named Joint Forest Management and is also called Participatory Forest Management. So far, 28 states have issued uh, resolutions for joint forest management by 2003. 17.33 million hectares of forest lands were being managed and protected by about uh, 84 lakhs 6,000 villages level JFMC have been formed. The aim is to universalize JFM to involve all the 1.73 lakh villages in the vicinity of forests based on the experiences gained in the implementation of this program since 1990. The Government of India modified the related guidelines in 2000 and 2002, and state governments have been framing their respective rules within the framework of the said guideline of the government of India. The National Afforestation and Development Based NAEB was established in 1992 for promoting afforestation and ecological restoration activities in the country. It is the assessor of the erstwhile National Watershed Development Board and it's responsible for providing inputs to the rehabilitation of regarded forests in the states. Under the National Afforestation Program, the Government of India assists the states in their afforestation efforts. Also, this program is being used by the Government of India to expand and promote the joint forest management in the states. the this has been designed for easy and for easy and uh, clear concept. It made a number of committees in between the villages and the government so that the things can be carried on for the better forest management. The panchayat institutions enable people to understand their socio-economic interests and take decisions at their level for their own good. With the notification of 73 Amendment Act 1992 and its implementation in 1996, Panchayat Raj functions have been provided at the village, the intermediate and the district level among the 29 duties entrusted to the PRIs as per the Act. Social forestry, from forestry, minor forestry, produce fuel and fodder are some of the important aspects which are related to the forestry sector. Thus, it empowers the PRIs to take decisions regarding the management of the natural resources at their disposal. However, the management of state forest has been the responsibility of the state government institutions, and therefore JFM institutions participating in the management of the government for forests are considered to be outside the purview of the local self-government. So here you find the number of committees working according to the needs of the particular area specific and the villages, and in the state and in the at the panchayat level, and in the interest of the uh, in forest areas. Panchayat extensions to be scheduled areas Act 1996 extends panchayats to the tribal areas Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and these states also given enabling tribal societies to resume control over their own destiny, to preserve and conserve their traditional rights over the natural resources. So, in this context, as the management of government forests has been retained with state governments, the rights over minor forests produced in both the acts has attached conflicting interpretations of MFP, leading to a situation where definite clarifications on the aspect are not forthcoming. Uh, So the Ministry of Rural Development also issues guidelines in the year 2000 to 2003, keeping in view the facts that the state's forests are kept beyond the domain of PRIs. So here in Gram Sabha, including the committees, panchayat and state forest corporations have also advised to assist the committees for developing. The state forest corporation have been advised to assist the JMFC meetings and also the uh, NTFP collection, storage, marketing uh, issues of the forest products. So here the meetings are being conducted periodically, and the amendments are being made according to the needs required for the betterment of the villagers and as well as the tribals in particular. So the rights of the tribal are are being taken care of and considered, discussed in the meetings, and suitably the actions communicated to the government for their protection. In rural development, particularly the village eco development, you will find the community conservation of biodiversity. It is one of the aspects dealing in the social forestry, and here the concept and design is the village eco development aims at the all-round development of the village as planned by the villagers themselves for sustainable use of all resources available at their disposal. The dependence of villages on the forest uh, diverted by creating livelihood opportunities outside the PS by organizing the usual available resources, increasing productivity and value addition based in rural companies and entrepreneurs, non invisible services generated in the PS are made available to the deserving members of the community, and they are empowered with knowledge and technique in the achieving the objectives of the management of the protection of the PS children, for example, are involved in the nature, education, and the appreciation of natural phenomena. So these are all the things to be taken care and dealing with the village eco development. It is treated as a government program. So here, the basic principle of this management is the village or a particular the society should not suffer, and the ecological balances, biodiversities, these are conservations. These are all taken care uh, in cooperation with the communities. When the so the last chapter, science and technology for rural development. This topic has been already discussed, and also in brief, just for a rural development, science and technology plays an important role, and this has been this is already existing since 1947. There is an urgent need to deliver them to the most needy so that they are able to meet the challenges of the technology sophisticated world. So advances in technology counter to create never newer methods of communications and information management, which have been produced profound impact on the society at large. And they have been offered unprecedented opportunities and challenges for scientific endeavors. Though science has a universal character, it is support or constrained by practices which are influenced by local customs and values. In rural areas, behavior patterns and practices are deeply noted in traditional beliefs and superstitions that are not easily displaced by science or a modern approaches based on new knowledge. There is also a need to bridge the digital divide between the urban and the rural areas by making these technologies more and more accessible by improving connectivity, computerization, and the content areas. Similarly, in the context of pollution, environment, degradation, and the need for sustainable development, harassing the potential of S&T for systematic and, and coordinated use of local resources is a nature of paramount importance. So the rural areas need to explore the socio-economic implications of new technologies, especially to predict their impact on society, identify emerging opportunities and services as an early warning system. The natural disasters, the rapid growth and undisseminated influence of new technologies, especially the information and communication technologies, including the talent, the internet, or raising global awareness about the power of technology as a whole. So once the village is connected with new technology and also the science and technological researches, and it will be the development becomes easier and simplified. It reaches everybody within no time. Hello, hello, hello. Any doubt? Hello, hello. हेलो
बंद कर लो।
हाँ
हेलो
सर।
सर किसी डाउट
हाँ सर।
अच्छी
अच्छा सर क्लास तो पिला तो किए ना क्लास सरला तो बंद करदे सर।
हाँ सर सरीगला आ 5 मिनिट
बंद
टाइम देइथिले जदि किसी डाउट थिबो पचारले
कर
कहि
ओके सर क्लोज करूँ थैंक यू सर।
ओके सर।